Welcome back to another paranormal spooky. First of all, intervention time, Mr. Mikey Bowser, because what are you doing with your life right now? You have a baby on the way. You're summoning the devil in all your videos now. I see you. You're lighting candles and you're talking to ghosts on some type of frequency. I have to question it.
Well, just having a little bit of fun before the baby comes. After that, I mean, not sure how much summoning the devil will be able to do, but maybe here and there, every once in a while, have a paranormal journey.
I just picture how many movies it's like, well, your dad died because he was summoning the devil through a Ouija board, and then it's before you were born. It was like, okay, God forbid that happens. But dude, I was all right. So for people listening, I came across one of Mr. Past guest a couple of times, good friend Mikey Bowser's paranormal teams videos on their Facebook and Bump in the Night Society. Shout out to them. Um, it was very it gave me a weird vibe because I'm listening to you guys talk through. I'm guessing that's the spirit box that you've told me about multiple times, but it's a lot like it's speaking through radio frequencies. I think we talked about a little bit. When you would hear this thing talk, it sounds like if you're scanning your radio like late at night or early in the morning and you're scanning through the channels, there's some channels that are bleeding through the others, but you would ask a question, it would give you an answer. And I'm like, is it like Bumblebee, where it can only speak through the radio by finding something that has been created content wise on the radio and projecting through that? Because none of this sounds like how a thing would whisper, like, what are the lottery numbers for next week? And the voice just goes, find my murderer. This is like, what is life about? And then it's Forrest Gump on the radio, like, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Well, actually, sometimes it does come in kind of like a robot tone. You do get that from time to time. The way it works, though, is that even if you watch the documentary we just put out last night, there's one in an AM sweep. With the FM sweep, you do get some radio bleed from time to time. With an AM sweep, you pretty much don't because there's not really any
AM's
radio
dead.
coming in. Yeah, exactly, essentially. And we did get one entity at the Bel Air house named Fred. We kept getting him on FM sweeps. We had intelligent knocks just in the basement with nothing on. He would just knock on the wall or whatever. And then we did an AM sweep on a spirit box, and he still came through saying, we asked what your name is, said Fred. And then I said, well, just want to make sure it's right. Are we correct with the name Fred? And it said, I am Fred, through an AM sweep over multiple channels. And I get what you're saying. Like maybe it's coincidence, like the radio bleeds coming through.
No, more
I know.
like it's speaking through the radio. Like it's not like an accident, like, oh, that's just a signal coming through. More like it's searching for itself and it has to use something that's been created like media or content wise to be able to project through. Like that's the interesting thing is that it's answering the questions that you're asking. It can't just be a coincidence that you say, what's the type of drink? And then you're like, it goes Pepsi. And you're like, well, it's answering the
Mhm.
question, but it's using something that's been as created content already. I think that's how they would speak. I mean, is that possible? Like some people speak in different dialects. Maybe this is just a different way. It's not straight out answers because we think we've talked about and much everybody's kind of listened to or seen in movies. It's very, very hard to break through the spiritual plane. When you die in a Red Lobster when you're 45 years old and you're communicating 80 years later, it's gonna be kind of hard to narrow it down to exactly all the words that you want them to say.
Yeah, and on top of that, it takes a lot of energy for them to break through and communicate. Um, I don't know if they necessarily manipulate the existing radio sounds or frequencies because a lot of the times, if you do like I said, I was talking about an AM sweep, it does sound like the same electronic voice phenomena that you get with a digital voice recorder, which those are very clean. I mean, with the digital voice recorder, there's no radio manipulation or anything like that. If you get something on a digital voice recorder, that's just straight up ghost. There's no debunking it or anything. But the voice tones can sound similar from time to time, where it's kind of a whisper, like I'm trying to think of an example from a prior investigation, but sometimes they do come in as a whisper, and it's not like the radio like robot tone.
Well,
that,
like
that you've
you
heard before.
you put up a video like I was only a couple minutes long, and it was like fresh, like spur of the moment, like when you try and catch somebody like a birthday or something, you know you plan those out. But when you do like something that's like, oh my god, take a picture, and you pull out your phone real quick and take a picture. You've done a video like that where it's like, hurry up, get your phone out, take a video, and then you've been sitting there. I guess it was in your own house or something, but you've just said something, and then something answers back, and then that's kind of it. And it's like a
Mhm.
walkie-talkie thing is what I got a feel of, like somebody was speaking into the thing and then transferring it to you. But I knew that there was no one that has a walkie-talkie. It's a whole separate device. It's kind of like when you're a kid, and if you got 10 feet away from someone, the walkie-talkie would start to go like when you would go
Yeah.
to talk, and the little play walkie-talkie stuff. That's exactly kind of how when I was watching this video, because I was literally like, I had to get up out of my seat, but I moved in my chair. I was like, hang on a fucking second. I was like, is this some like, I know we talked about it multiple times, but seeing it is a little bit different where you're like, that's really fucking weird, where it starts to make you think a little bit. And I was listening to a podcast, and the guy was talking about all these fake evangelical people, like the priests that are like, come over to my son and I'll make you walk. And it's all that. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, those people are just scamming you for money. I bet a
Oh
large
yeah.
portion of them is probably scamming you for money. But how many people actually believe that as well, too? Like you had sent me a message when that lady came on and she was speaking to these ghosts. And you're like, did she seem like she was real or was she full of shit? And I was just like, I think she believed it herself. I think that's what
Hmm.
happens. Imagine if you're born, or let's say your kid, for instance, your kid that's coming hopefully soon is born,
Yeah.
and
Not
then,
too soon, but
yeah, but is born, and then you tell him his whole entire life that he is the descendant of some type of great person through history, and then they spend their whole life thinking that this was this. Like in How I Met Your Mother, Neil Patrick Harris thought his dad was Bob Barker, so he spent his whole life thinking he's the son of Bob Barker. He's got to live up to those expectations. It's kind of like that with the ghost telling lady. So many people probably told her. She told me a story of meeting a shaman, and the shaman was like, you have great power coming from you. Was it a scam? Probably. But imagine somebody telling you, and you kind of already have this in the back of your mind, and now you're feeding the flower. Next thing you know, it starts to become this giant plant where you start thinking you have magical abilities. And then when you start doing stuff, people just kind of play with you a little bit.
yeah, yeah. So essentially, it's like what we talked about before, where you kind of believe it into existence, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I bought her book. It was very interesting. I didn't get to finish it. I'm about halfway through, but I had to stop, pause on that and start reading my daddy books.
Yeah. You got to put your priorities up front there.
Yeah, they're a little more coherent, but
Yeah, they actually give you a rule book of things and not just feed into the schizophrenia. Um, but it's interesting, man, because like now I've got super excited wanting to get into this a little bit more too, especially like with like I see you guys do the paranormal stuff. I'm like, man, I'll take a trip out to Pennsylvania and just go on one of these hunts that they go on.
hell yeah, dude, you're always welcome. Like I said, Sean's coming to Ocean City. I think it's sometime in July. You guys should meet up, and I'm sure he'll have some equipment that you guys can go out and go somewhere crazy. I know you've had some experiences at cemeteries and stuff like that.
But do you get like with the Ouija board thing? Was that a Ouija board I saw you guys at the table with, or was that something else? Something
No,
else?
no, I don't really mess with Ouija boards. I know you can buy them at Toys R Us, but I still don't. I don't know. I never get comfortable with them. No, we did. It was almost like a channeling session where we sat around it. It was at a seance table at the Bel Air House, and we did this thing where you kind of channel in and kind of create like almost like an energy ball. You just envision a ball in the center of the table and try to get the entities to feed off of that, and that's what kind of gets the energy going in the house. We weren't doing any crazy satanic shit or anything like that, but
Well, what did we call satanic shit? Because for someone's, what we would identify as satanic shit is probably someone's every Tuesday night. You know what I mean? It's simple to them. It's
oh yeah.
interesting because like the Ouija board thing, I look at like, because now they're starting to research, which is nuts to me. The idea of another dimension has now come into the possibility in science. Neil deGrasse Tyson has talked about it. A lot of physicists have talked about trying to open up the new dimension now. Now, some people, spiritual people, talk about 5D. They'll talk about this other dimension. What is your idea of another dimension? with the paranormal experience as well too. Because what I thought for so long was alternate timelines. I thought it was like you open up another
Could be.
dimension. It's instead of you wearing a white shirt right now, you're wearing a black shirt, and then instead of having the hair you have now, you have a mohawk or you have something that's a little bit different than the one we're in right now. Like maybe there's a Robbie out there that's actually successful. I would like to meet that guy, kill him, and take his life. I don't know. But it's interesting because when you start to get down that rabbit hole of like that's what another dimension is, the way I've heard it in podcasts have been no, a dimension is not an alternate timeline. That's something completely different. A dimension is like Doctor Strange. There's another extra experience your body is just neglected for generations upon generations. I mean, we talk about ancestral DNA, a lot of that's real. Like people don't really want to talk about like reincarnation, which I don't think is what it is. I think once you're gone, you probably are gone, but I think you recede into something around you like this earth that we're living on. But
Mhm.
when we talk about like the ancestral DNA and all this type of stuff, they did a study with rats where they would shock this rat whenever they let this pheromone out, like this certain type of smell. Like if you burn the same candle every day, it's going to be nostalgic or whatever after a while. Well, these rats had like generations upon generations of kids. And then the future generations knew that when that smell came around, they were going to get shocked. So they were bracing for it. And that's like 3 litters down the line. So, like,
Mhm.
eventually, after a while, you choose to neglect your gifts for so long, they just kind of recede back into what it is. It might be a sliver of what could possibly be. Maybe one day, if we're discovering other dimensions, we'll be able to find out people can just astral project whenever the hell and you never get peace and quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. People will just be, oh, I lost you, Robbie.
I still see you.
You still see me?
Your screen
Okay, I
just went
can't see
dark.
you, but
Are you
yeah, as
talking
far
into a
as
blank computer? Hang on a second. We got to fix that. Hold on.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
Did it go into sleep mode?
No, I'm clicking on, I don't
Here,
know.
I'm going to pause.
Let's roll with it.
The best part about Out of the Blank is even with technical difficulties, we still don't know where we're at, where we're going, and where we will be.
Exactly. As far as like different dimensions go, I mean, I definitely always am a proponent of believing that for sure. As far as what we're interacting with, could be some different dimension. It could be another timeline. I like how you brought that up as well. I don't know if you ever saw the movie. It wasn't really the greatest, at least that I haven't seen it in years, but The
Back to the Future?
Others. What, Back to the Future? Yeah. Now that is the greatest, but no, the movie The Others, where it's set in like I want to say the 1800s, and this woman is with her 2 kids, and they keep getting her husband's off to war, and they keep getting like paranormal activity in the household. It's like this giant mansion that they have, and the whole time she thinks it's like evil beings like coming to try to get her, but it turns out, I don't know if I want to give you spoilers, but it did come out in like 1998, so if you haven't seen it, that's your fault. But at the end of the movie, it turns out that it's a paranormal group around a seance table, and they're in the present time, and her and her kids are actually dead. She had found out her husband died in a war, and then she went and killed her kids and then killed herself, and the whole time they're actually the ghosts doing the haunting. But throughout the whole movie, she thought it was ghosts haunting her and her family. It was just an alternate timeline type of scenario.
What do you think's more possible, that there's another dimension or there's an alternate timeline out there?
I think it could be both. I mean, you have 2 types of hauntings, really. I would say 3. You have residual hauntings, where it's kind of like just a memory playing over and over again. I think that would probably be more on the timeline factor. Then you have intelligent ones where they actually interact with you, and I would say that would probably be more of an interdimensional type of haunting. And then you have like what we had at the Bel Air house, where you have just straight up evil. And I don't know if that would be interdimensional. I guess it would be, because it said that place has 11 portals. So it's like portals to another realm or another dimension. So I would say, yeah, it could be both time and dimensional.
It's just interesting to me because everybody has their own interpretation of what something means. I think it's just like religion. Everyone has their own idea of what religion is, what the concept of a god is. If it's a guy, if it's a girl, if it's an omnipotent being, if it's a Dr. Manhattan character. Um, I look at it as like alternate realities or demons, for instance. When you say the word demon, I think of this giant horned beings that are like black energy that just want to just suck up your soul and make hell raise upon the earth. But then if you really start looking into demons, are demons just your manifesting of your bad emotions and bad thoughts? And it's like very interesting to see of how, what is a dimension? Is a dimension a gift or an ability or something that we've just become null to? How many like this just came to me. A guy told me in an episode, the guy who owned Texas Roadhouse. Did you hear how he died?
No.
You know what Texas Roadhouse is, right?
Yeah, yeah, the steak
He
place.
died of tetanus. So in his ear during this pandemic, he had tetanus, which is a ringing in his ear that just wouldn't go away, and he killed himself because the ringing just was. It's like a in your ear to where it's
Yeah.
never going to stop. Imagine months upon months of that. You're eventually going to lose your shit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like a pistachio, you're going to crack. It's going to get down to the little nut. And imagine if the dimension is just something that we've neglected for so long. It's like this ringing, like a hum in a refrigerator that just eventually goes away. Imagine that dimension was something that we were able to tap into where we could do amazing things. Maybe that's how they built the pyramids. They were more in tune with the fact that they could reach into a dimension. Because if you really like, there are sometimes you examine properties of matter, like I do sometimes when I get like, well, it's late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, on top of my roof doing things I probably shouldn't be doing, thinking if I jump off this, if I think about not breaking my ankles, will I not break my ankles? That's willing it into the universe, right? But if you look at like matter, everything that we touch is matter. Imagine if you were like, all right, if I could just touch this and make these molecules just ones and zeros and make them weightless. I can move the ones and zeros in a position where this brick doesn't weigh a brick anymore.
Hmm.
People use smelling salts to be extra strong. It helps them get a lift in. And also people can set up something and not even think about the weight that's going on. I saw a dude load up 2 plates that was smaller than me, and he's never lifted that in his life, but he just got so pissed off it just showed somebody up by lifting it and throwing it up there. Is it just like kind of having the confidence of doing something, knowing that this doesn't mean anything to what we actually think it means, and it expands your brain out, kind of like Lucy, which has kind of been debunked, that whole using only 20% of your brain is just bullshit. But
No.
the whole factor of like maybe we're capable of things that we don't know we're capable of because of the fact we've neglected it for so long. Our kind of interests or aspirations have went in a completely different direction from maybe the main focus that we should have been on.
Well, there's definitely there's 2 points that I would say regarding that. One is, I mean, that sounds like stuff that people do when they join the occult. It's kind of opening up and essentially doing magic, like not Harry Potter type shit, but that's like the idea of occultism is expanding yourself and being able to get in touch with a lot of it's about vibrations and getting in tune with the vibrations of everything because everything has a vibration to it, and that's kind of what the occult does. They try to open up different things that allow them to have essentially supernatural abilities just by being in tune. And by being in tune too, I think that the more you do like the paranormal stuff, I feel like the more you do it, the more in tune that you become. So like what I had, I've told you before on prior podcasts, I had that bad experience when I was like 19, and I kind of shut it off after that. I was like, I'm never, I never want to do that shit again. And then eventually, I said, I don't know. I guess during the pandemic, I started thinking, I kind of want to maybe explore that route a little bit. And then the more I did it, the more in tune I became. And what really got me started was my house. Like we kept getting activity. We hear people walking around when we were upstairs in bed. We'd hear people walking around downstairs, or if we're downstairs working out, we'd hear people above us walking around. And we've had some experiences where I was in bed, Hannah was next to me, and our cat was on the other side of me. And I heard someone audibly cough down in our living room at one point. So that's kind of, I was like, well, man, I never really lived in a haunted house, and it seems like this house has some activity. And that's when I kind of, talked to Garrett and kind of started talking about the team, and I joined, and then I bought some equipment and went down in my basement and started talking to the entities down here. And I feel like the more I get into it, the more in tune, the more activity that I'll be able to see.
You ever see the movie Paul
Yes.
with Seth Rogen, the alien? They have
Yeah.
another one where it's like anything, and it's like the dude just moves his hand, and he can do anything he wants with his hand. He could just swipe it, and then it would just make anything appear, disappear. He could bend fabric of reality. Imagine if right now in this plane of existence that we're on in this dimension, another dimension is like still on top of this. Like if you take a bunch of lines and start placing them over top of each other, like a bunch of line triangles, you start placing them over top of each other, a lot of them start to blend through. Maybe that it ends up becoming so much that like how we have the ozone, for instance, the atmosphere layer. Imagine if there's a layer that's a spiritual layer, it's another dimension, and that's where they're at. And sometimes these things bleed through where you might be in your own house on your own separate property away from all other homes where there's no one below you or above you, like an apartment. And eventually you just start seeing like shadowy figures, or you start seeing like, I guess, a ghost figure in a way, and they're looking at you like, what the fuck is happening here? And you start to realize that it's these planes of existence that are bleeding through because of the fact that maybe we're becoming more in tune with it, or maybe the fact that, see, that's where it becomes an issue where I talk about believing into something so much that you could actually see it could be true. You start getting so diverse into something. Medical students get it when they're examining a certain disease or illness. They'll start experiencing symptoms of that disease or illness. You know, if you start playing a game 24/7, you're going to start seeing pixels like the game that you were playing. And it's like if you start involving yourself in ghosts so much, how much until your brain starts creating something that might not intentionally be there?
Yeah, yeah, that is true. I mean, that's why when you're doing investigations, you want to try to debunk whatever you get, or at least try to take it to a level where it's like, okay, well, I can't figure out why the hell this happened. Because I know I didn't really have any instances in the current documentary that we just released, but in my prior one, when we went to Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, I was going around a corner with the camera, and while reviewing the evidence, I was like, holy shit, there was a shadow figure right there in that hallway. And I watched it for 40 minutes straight. And then I finally debunked it. It was an owl statue that was sitting on a table. And for some reason, the IR light on my camera made a glare on the owl's eyes. And I thought, if you watch it, it looks like it's like a shadow figure, and then its eyes like light up and it follows you. And that's why you have to do it. In any investigation, you have to try to debunk whatever evidence you get.
Do you
Because you don't, if you put false evidence out there and people debunk it, then you just kind of look like a dick.
do you think, like, have you ever seen the show Jupiter's Legacy?
Yes, yeah, I have.
Well, at the ending, when he goes and they go to that other planet and they get their powers or whatever it is, they all see someone different. They see the person that meant the most to them, the person that would be the most comfortable for the person to see. Do you think that's what it's like? Like, there's only like, here's a good one. So have this theory of genetic code. I have this theory that all the ones and zeros that are like your hand is filled with ones and zeros, and it's all passed down from your ancestors, from
Like
your gene.
binary code.
Exactly. I think that, for instance, the ghosts that you can see when no one else can see them, the things that you can see that no one else can see, is things that are somehow inherently related to you, somehow are part of you, for instance. It was kind of like my theory about the lab, the
Mhm.
Wuhan lab. I was like, imagine if like if it did come from the lab, allegedly, if it did, that you're testing the best thing if you're going to create a weapon is you got to find out, okay, we got to test it on some people. And to test it on some people, you got to get your workers in on it. And eventually, the people that got COVID maybe had a certain genetic thing. The actual theory right now is that it only affects certain blood types, like
Yeah.
certain blood types get it. So I'm like, imagine if that's just your genetic code, and the type of blood type or genetic code that was in the lab were a certain variety of only a couple, not every single one. So then the people that didn't get it didn't have that genetic code or something like that. Maybe it's like that with the paranormal. You see, like, does anybody else see this? What are you talking about? And you can see the ghost. Maybe it's not that you're in tune with your gifts, but there's something genetically related to you or something about you that it chooses to reveal itself to because it likes something about your personality.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that 100%. I don't know if it would be necessarily genetic. I think it may be, I mean, I'm not really big on auras, but maybe something with your energy that is in tune. It's more on an energy level than an actual genetic level. Um, or even how you're feeling. I mean, sometimes,
Hitler will only show himself if you have blonde hair and blue eyes.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Or if you just straight up have the Hitler stash when you're going to investigate.
I can't believe that man ruined a mustache for so many people.
I know, and I hate it. I'll never have a mustache. I had it a couple times, and my friend actually made a little GIF of my head on Hitler's body. So yeah, I'll never do that again.
I look at it like there's so much that we're not understanding, and people want to put it like, oh no, they already figured out it's because of this. It's like, how do you know though? Because
Yeah.
there's got to be multiple answers. Because how do we know what demons are? People assort demons to be monsters, like I did, but they could be also bad emotions. What people call heavy thoughts, I call demons. They're things that are inside of you that won't go away. People call your shadow self the negative version of you, everything that's wrong, because he's supposed to be the opposite of you. He never speaks, or he does everything the opposite that you do, even though he mimics every single reaction that you do. But
Hmm.
emotionally in your mind, you feel like this person is negative because there's no features for you to relate to it. Or I just look at, is it the negative self, or could you flip the script? Because at one point, when I just spent so much time this by myself thinking a lot, being a little hermit, I only thing that was there was my shadow. So that was the only thing that gave me comfort, where it's like it all depends on how you're looking at it. And I think it's a lot like space. In space, you being like this, it might be okay, well, here's the top and here's the bottom. In space, there is no direction. It's all okay, well, this is the bottom and this is the top. You know, it all comes on how you're looking at the earth. America
Yeah.
on top, and then Alaska or Antarctica at the bottom. Well, if you flip it over, Antarctica's at the top and Alaska or America's on the bottom. It's like very, very strange. It's all about how you choose to tackle a conclusion. My theory on this is if you're tackling anything with a perspective and an open mind, and you're trying to find your base understanding of what relates best to what you think, don't make yourself batshit crazy with it. Like, don't make yourself go insane, and do not restrict anyone else's opinions or views based on what they have come to the conclusion in of trying to understand themselves. If one person wants to believe it's a ghost that knocked the drink off the table, and another person wants to believe that the table was slanted, and that's the reason
Hmm.
why they have coasters under it, even though the coasters are meant to prevent it from slanting. So that means you either need to add more coasters or spend an extra $20 to get a new fucking table. Like it's very, very interesting. I like to keep that open mind perspective. It will give you headaches, though, I will admit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, everything's a matter of perspective too. I mean, going on the demon side of things, I know with like occult practitioners and even Satanists, it's not viewed as like a negative thing. Interacting with demons is you can learn from them essentially. The only aspect is they can trick you. Um, if you ask them something and you word it a certain way, then you got to watch how you word your wishes or your questions to them because they can twist it. And I mean, even people that I can't speak 100% for it because I don't interact myself or do any of the. I'm not a practitioner or anything. I just going by hearsay, people I've talked to that are practitioners. Same with like as far as angels go. Everyone views as good and evil, but I mean, angels can be potentially destroyers of things. It's just a matter of perspective, and that's even with like wars today. I mean, if you look at let's say like the war in the Middle East, I mean, if you go on their news channels, we look like the complete assholes. But if you go on ours, they look like evil terrorists, and it's just a matter of perspective. Even to go into Star Wars, like the rebels, they could just be looked at as terrorists from the empire's perspective. It's just everything is a matter of perspective, and it can be twisted one way or another.
So when you see all these things, like, have you ever watched a movie or you seen any of these alien videos that are on YouTube or whatever, Facebook, whatever? If you look and you see like something flying in the air and it looks like it hits a wall, but nothing is there. I think a lot of this talk about we're living in a simulation where I'm like, I swear to God, with everything that's happened to me, if I find the person that's running this fucking script, I'm gonna kick the living shit out of them. Um,
So instead of the Truman Show, it's the Robbie Show.
but if you really examine the simulation theory, maybe it's partly right, but in the concept of there's all these dimensions that are coming through and it's all compiling on top of each other. I mean, how long does it take or in how many people does it take if you believe in an afterlife? How long does that it's got to fill up at some point. It can't just be infinite. There has to be a number where with I'm not even talking about with the space occupancy. I'm talking about
Mhm.
on the concept of like if we have energy and your energy does transcend into the next life, how much energy until it starts to bleed through into the other side? It's kind of like starting off with like 10 people in your town, and now there's thousands and now millions. And you're like, okay, it's going to be a lot harder to get around when there's so many people. It's Ocean City in the fucking summertime.
Yeah.
During winter, it's dead. There's nobody on the roads. I can leave a minute before my job starts and I'll get to fucking work. But if I leave in the summer, it's a 45-minute drive just to get into town because there's back to back traffic. Eventually, it starts to affect some things. Maybe that's like that with the afterlife. Eventually, it does fill up a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good perspective too. Yeah, maybe it is just bleeding through because there's not enough space and the energies over hit an overload. It depends on what you believe in. If you believe in reincarnation, then there's only a set amount of energy, and your energy when it leaves your body is going into something else, whether it's an animal or another human or wherever. So it really depends on what you believe in. I do like that idea that maybe there is so much energy, and that's why people are more in tune now because it's not really that anything changed with the living beings. It's just there's so much energy out there. It is bleeding through. I like that idea.
Like people talk about every time a spirit comes in contact, it's always like mad or angry or throws something. A lot of the times, it's usually the story that you kind of get. Not really. No,
No, no, there's
call me out
definitely
on my shit.
positive ones. No, there's definitely positive ones. I mean, one of my first investigations was at the Anchorage Mansion in Marietta, Ohio, and everything was positive there. There was nothing negative. The main entity of the house was a woman named Eliza. Oh, it's
Slushing
been
shirt.
so long, I can't remember her last name. I'm usually pretty good with remembering and recalling him. Eliza, shit. I can't remember. Her last name escapes me. But the
Capillera.
reason she was, what's that?
Capillera.
Sure, that works.
Okay. Sounds Italian.
Yeah, but no, she just she was at the location. Her husband built the mansion for her, and shortly after they finished construction, she died. So they feel that she haunts there, not as a negative thing, but she just never got to enjoy it while she was alive. So now she wants to stay there in the afterlife so she has time to enjoy the mansion that her husband built for her.
It's kind of like driving home and you have a pizza in the car and you're waiting to get home to get the pizza and then you get into a car accident and die. It's like you just want to
Yeah.
come back just to have that slice that you never got to enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm looking at it on the concept of like every movie we see is someone throwing something or some type of exorcism that goes on. And I go, imagine that though. Like think from the ghost perspective. Imagine you're dead and you're walking around your house. And I think when you die, it's kind of like if there is not this energy thing that recedes back into the earth, if there is a ghost plane, maybe it's just like this one. You're living here, but you're around everybody, and you're like, why can't anybody see me? So then you have to eventually, when that person dies, to go, it's you. I haven't seen you in years. It's like, dude, I've been waiting for so fucking long for someone to finally notice me dying. I saw everything you've ever done. And then it's like, wow, it's like, and maybe that's why they get so angry. Imagine trying to be able to communicate. You're opening up the fridge to get food. And next thing you know, someone comes in, shuts the fridge, grabs what they needed out of it, shuts the fridge, and then starts making their breakfast. And you're like, motherfucker, like I was in the middle of something, dick. And it's like, that's why they get so angry and knock something off the table.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of funny. We Sean and Phil from our team, they did a video for
Both
the
past guests,
documentary. What's that?
both past guests.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was a flashlight video because we had a lot of flashlight interaction with the twist top flashlights, and you can communicate through spirits that way by asking them a question like, if you're a male entity, can you turn the flashlight on? And it turns on. And they made a joke video for the documentary, and it was Sean asked Phil, if you're a male entity, can you turn the flashlight on? And he turns the flashlight. He's like, oh, great. I wanted to tell a ghost story. And he starts telling the ghost story. And then it's like, if you're over the age of 20, shut the flashlight off. And it shuts the flashlight off. He's like, damn it. And it kept doing it that way. And eventually he's like, motherfucker, I just want to tell a story. So that
Imagine.
that is a possibility. It can be frustration over that, or like I mean, I've had entities where we're at Trans Allegheny and lunatic asylum, and I asked like, "Do you like visitors?" And they're like, "No," and they kept telling me to shut up. Like some just don't want to be bothered. But going back to the positive ones, I can't believe I didn't think of this one right away. There's a woman entity. I think she had, if I remember correctly, cerebral palsy. Her name's Mary Virginia at Hillview Manor, and she is the biggest sweetheart ever. She was a patient there, and she died there, obviously. And in her room, everybody leaves necklaces for her, like beaded necklaces, like you would
That's
see in
why
Mardi
she's
Gras.
so positive, because everyone gives a shit about her.
Yeah, I know. No, it was so sweet though. I interacted with her using a REM pod. We had a REM pod sitting on the bed, which is like it's a little cylinder kind of device that has an antenna and it emits an electromagnetic field. And anytime that field's broken, it'll light up. And I was interacting with her, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna give you a necklace," and it started buzzing. And I was like, "Well, you got to tell me where to put it though, because she has
Up
bed."
your ass.
Yeah, I know. But she had a bed, and then she had like there's curtain rods that go around the patients need changed or something. The nurses will shut them so they have privacy. And there's like it's littered with beaded necklaces already. And I'm like, do you want it up here? I got nothing. Then I went to the next bed over. I was like, do you want it up on this curtain? I got nothing. And I was like, well, what about here? There was I think it was one of those toilets that they use for people with that are handicapped. I was like, do you want me to put it on there? And it started buzzing like real hard. Like, yeah, that's where I want you to put it. And I was like, all right, well, that makes sense. I shit a lot, and I guess that you'd want me to put the necklace and the offering, on the shitter. So that makes sense.
That's nuts though, because I'm like, damn, imagine if your soul is attached to a toilet.
Yeah, but no, it's essentially she is definitely in the bed, and it's so sweet though because they actually for Christmas they have Santa come in and they visit Mary Virginia's room, and they always get really positive interactions because she's essentially kind of has the mind of a child. I mean, she had, like I said, I think it was cerebral palsy, but I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly what disability she had, but it did affect her mind, where she was essentially somewhat intellectually disabled and did have a mind of a child.
Wait, what's the house called?
It's called Hillview Manor. It's in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It's actually we got to get permission, but it's probably going to be the next documentary I make is from our time at Hillview. Sean and Jen actually had their bachelor and bachelorette party at Hillview Manor.
Let's see. Haunted Hillview Manor. Give me
Yeah,
some.
it's a very active place.
Perry D. Snyder and his wife, Mary A. Snyder, who were elected in 1913 to run the institution. But who's the ghost? What's the ghost name?
That one was Mary Virginia. There's a ton of ghosts there. I mean, it was an old poor farm, and then I think it was turned into a nursing home.
Because what do you call it? There's old experiment that used to be, it's called Willowbrook State School. I think I've talked about it a couple of times in the show before, at least way back in the day. It's a normal high school. It doesn't have a whole lot of history on the Wikipedia, but if you look, there are some articles. It used to be an old army infirmary.
Hmm.
So what eventually happened is that this school, and this was all right, you got to take in point of what the time period was. The time period of the school, or at least back then, they didn't understand what mentally challenged or retardation was. So the easy fix is to like give it to someone that could be able to be equipped to deal with it,
Hmm.
or be able to handle all the problems that might happen or something like that. That's just a parent's point of view, is they didn't want to worry about it back then. That was, I mean, that
Yeah.
was like the 70s and all that. So that was actually way before the 70s. I think it was like the 40s or something like that.
Hmm.
And this school used to be an old army infantry place, Willowbrook State School. And they used to just it, I mean, massive amounts of people with mentally challenged diseases, and they would abuse the shit out of them, dude. They would lock them in room, like 50, 60 of them on top of each other, naked,
Yeah.
shit on the floor, piss on the walls, everything like that. And they would inject them with hepatitis. They would test drugs on them, like the Tuskegee experiments. And it was
Yeah.
fucking nuts. I'm like, yo, if you go there, that's got to be a haunted ass place, man. The horrors
Oh yeah,
behind
for
that
sure.
hall.
I mean, that's how it was at Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum too. I mean, it was overcrowded, and that's where they came up with the ice pick lobotomy. Um, yeah, we that's where I think I sent you the picture. I got that picture of the shadowy creature
Hmm.
that I got at the end of the night, and it looked like it was a robed humanoid with a jackal head. That was right outside of the lobotomy recovery room at Trans Allegheny.
You know what's scary to me is how long that still was a thing.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, because that was
It was until the 90s, and then in some places
yeah.
to the 2000s, lobotomy was still a way of being able to treat someone. Like, let me just take out part of your brain.
Yeah, yeah. And I think at Trans Allegheny, they did over, I want to say it was like 200. And they said it 1 week, it was Dr. Friedman was the inventor of the ice pick lobotomy. And that's where he invented it, was at Trans Allegheny. And they said 1 week he just kept bringing people in. He probably did like 40 lobotomies in one weekend at Trans Allegheny.
Imagine if there's a giant spirit like the keeper of all the ghosts or all the runs the paranormal plane, and he's like, you can never contact a human for very long because if you do, you'll eventually be captured by one of these. They'll try and find a way to break into this realm, this other dimension, and maybe that's why we're searching other dimensions. Imagine that. It's like torture doesn't even stop when you're dead. They're going to
Yeah.
capture you and lobotomize you. Somehow they're going to figure out how to tap into your ghost coding and be able to hurt you in such a way like if you say there's ghosts are real, first thing someone's going to say is, "Oh my God, do we have a way to combat them?" That's going to be like one of the
Yeah.
first thoughts for a lot of people. Like, how do we
Mhm.
defend ourselves from ghosts? It's like our mind immediately goes to protection or warfare, depending on how you look at it. And
Yeah.
that's probably a scary thing for them. They don't want to be captured.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, some of them, like you said, though, are already captured. I mean, some of them are trapped. I feel like at Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, a lot of them can't leave. Like they're stuck in some in particular rooms, and that's one of my theories going on the interdimensional, realms and whatnot. Is that entities do exist on different planes. And depending on the plane that they're on, they have limitations where they don't have, one plane will be more powerful than another. And that's why you'll see some spirits that are able to travel long distances or even attach themselves to living people or other objects. They're probably on a more powerful plane where other ones that are limited, like a Trans Allegheny, they're limited and trapped in a particular room, like an isolation chamber. um, they're not on a powerful plane, so they're stuck and they're essentially stuck there forever.
If man, that's just scary. Imagine being in pain and just repeating the same pain cycle over and over again. Like if
Oh
you're
yeah.
confined to a room or you're confined to your house, imagine you're a ghost and you're just trying to figure out like what it's like to, okay, well, I'm dead, but nobody can see me. So that means I could do whatever I want. If you have free range, that's got to be kind of fun for a little while. Like the first 2 years, you're like, thank God I don't have to worry about spam calls calling me. Dude, I got a call from my own phone number.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
I got a spam call and my phone sent it to the voicemail immediately, like, because it knew it was spam. It was like spam
Hmm.
ended call. And I looked at it and I called it back. I don't know why. I just called it. I was like, that's my fucking phone number. Like, 'cause sometimes I call back and try and figure out who this number is or something like that. And it went to my voicemail. I was like, yeah, of course. Why would it? It's my phone number. Why would it go anywhere else? But I was like, how did it call me though? That's the strange thing. And I was like, how many times in my life have I said, if time travel exists, can my future self contact me? And then that was the call, and I missed it. I was like, oh God. He
Yeah.
goes, don't go to this gas station on this certain day. I'm like, oh shit, I missed it.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately, Robbie, I don't think it's time travel. I think it's just people hijacked your number.
I watched a whole entire YouTube video, like 55 minutes long. This dude was intelligent as shit. What he did was he had his computer set up, he had his reactions video thing set up, and he got the spam callers to call him. And he was like acting like an old lady had a voice changer. And he was saying, okay, well, here's my bank card information. I just want the $300. And what they do is they say that you've won money or something. They put money into your account. So they see your bank thing. He pulls up like a fake bank account with like a numbers in it. And they don't actually give you the money. What they do is they move the digits over. So it looks like you have money in there. So you're like, okay, so they're messing with you. So what he did was, instead of he was like, she was like, I see it, but I just called my bank and it says that you just moved digits over. So they're like, all right, we actually got one on the fucking line here. We don't want to give this one up. So let's actually give them money. So what they did goes, check again. They actually gave into the account $300. And
Yeah.
then what was going to happen was they did the $300 thing, and he moved the numbers over. He goes, you actually gave me $30,000. And then they were like, oh my God, you need to transfer that money right back now, man. Ma'am, you need to go into your bank. And it's like, guy was speaking with an accent,
Yeah.
which I don't know why, if you think some dude's calling you, I would like your social security number. It doesn't mean that they're not going to do that. Like, nobody with an accent can work there, but it just means like, hey, like, that's probably a
Yeah.
fucking scam.
Yeah. Your the red flag pops up for sure.
It's like, just get a person that goes, hey man, your security number is, even saying, hey man, I already fucked it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so they tell her to go to the bank, everything. She kept hanging up, said, don't call me anymore. I'm gonna call the police. You guys are scammers. And then eventually, after a while, like, ma'am, you need to transfer the money back over to us. And the guy just goes, I finally got you guys all on video. And let me guess, he goes, you, because of the way that they were, she was like, he was under the act. He was trying to get them to describe where they're at, so it seems legit. And they were talking about like, well, we work in an office with a blue calendar on the wall, and then this and this, and then
Very vague.
he goes, because this is not his first time dealing with these guys. He has multiple videos with this same exact call. He's never been able to narrow it down. He goes, is your boss Ramos? And the guys go, you know Ramos? And he goes, oh, I know exactly what you guys look like. And he goes, I look, I'm tired of you guys scamming people. And he puts their photo up on the thing. He goes, you guys are out of that fucking mall, aren't you? And they go, oh my God, you know, you're the reaction guy. You're the one that catches the spam callers. And the guy goes, yeah. He goes, and I'm fucking looking at a picture of you, and all my viewers looking at a picture of you. And the reason why I know this is the picture of you guys, because you said a blue calendar. There's a blue calendar right on the fucking wall right there. They're in a back part of like a Verizon store or some type of thing in the mall, just in a back room with a bunch of computers, but they had this whole fucking setup. And I'm like, it sucks, because I wish we had things in place where old people aren't taken advantage of like that. Cause I mean, there are
Yeah.
sometimes like, I know a lot of shit with technology where something happens. I'm like, I didn't even know my phone could do that. I feel like an old ass. Our great grandparents, our grandparents that go through this type of shit and get money taken from them out of their account, out of their funds, that sucks. But at the same time, those people that are doing that figured that fucking shit out. Let's give them a job where they can actually protect some shit rather than do more damage.
That's what I always said. You know, you have this ability to be this excellent hacker or this excellent scammer on the phone. You have to think like, well, you're pretty smart. Why don't you just get a real job, and then you don't have to, worry about watching behind your back and, worrying about getting caught all the time. Like, you're an intelligent person if you're able to scam people like that. Why not just get a regular job and not have to worry about getting arrested all the time?
Well, mistakes happen all the time. The unemployment, there's an unemployment Maryland page on Facebook. I'm pretty sure every state probably has an unemployment like page where the community just talks, trying to figure things out. When the pandemic was happening, everyone's trying to get their money. For a long time, I went until the very last month before reopening without any money. When I finally
Hmm.
got money, it was like 9,000 something dollars that came through. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
But
party time.
yeah, but mostly like, okay, I can finally restore my bank account from being drained all those months of being closed. And
Yeah.
a bunch of people were like, did there's a thing on their website that says, did you something make a mistake? Because people were getting money, like when they were supposed to get $1,400, they got $14,000, because you got to realize there's a person out there typing in the zeros and all this type of stuff to put into your account.
Nice typo.
And it's so crazy how like that's a lot of fucking money. I saw your eyes widen when you said 14, because I mean everyone would love $14,000, but
Oh
to
yeah.
them it's nothing. They were like,
Yeah.
yeah, can you just move that back, or can you just send most of that back? If it's an error, we'll fix that. And they just go into your account and they fix it for you. And it's like, oh my God, you have control of everything. It's like you could have 1,000, I mean billions of dollars, and that's still like, okay. It's like I could just move the ones and zeros around. There's a guy that was doing a credit card scam in Maryland for a long time. He would take his ATM card and he would like mess with some of the numbers or the chipping on the card back before the cards became like how they are today, where it's a lot of shit now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back when it was just so simple, you just, they just read the barcode or whatever. He would manipulate it, and then he would just pull like $1,000 out, or he pull, this is, I think, way before ATMs did the 600 limit. It was like
Hmm.
$1,000 or something. He would just keep pulling $1,000 out of different every time he would just change the barcodes. He was taking thousands of dollars out of people's accounts and shit and just fucking living off that. a thousand
Yeah.
dollars, you do that once a day or you do that once a week, you're fucking set. But he would drive around to different ATMs and do it. And eventually they tracked him through the ATM. The one that they like pinpoint him, like tried to find out, okay, he's at this one on this day, this one at this day, changes it up and go to this one, and they got him at a fucking ATM. They had a dude stake out and find him. I was like, yo, punish them, sure, but make them work for you too. Holy
Yeah,
shit, that's a
exactly.
skilled person.
That's like the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Did you ever see Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that kind of reminds me of. I mean, that guy was scamming them for so many years, and then eventually they're like, "All right, well, we'll just hire you. That's your punishment. You have to work for the FBI."
Well, for how long was it? Oh yeah, the dude that ended up like saying he was a flight guy or something like that. He was a
Yeah,
pilot.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He was a pilot. Yeah, because back then, if you're a pilot, you're the king shit, and that's why.
yeah. Everybody wants to throw themselves at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you're basically, I look at it, that's like a god position. You're basically flying this airplane. Well, back in the day, at least, it was flying an airplane. You had to make sure you were paying attention 24/7 because at any moment you could mess up and then end everybody's life, even your own.
Yeah,
Now
no
it's like,
autopilot.
yeah, now it's all autopilot and shit. It's like, hey, you're a pilot. It's like, yeah, but I don't really fly. I'm in the fucking back playing Jenga or Tower Run on my fucking phone,
Yeah,
Temple Run. Um,
that's what I asked. I actually last time I was on a plane, it was for work. I had to fly to Indiana to visit one of the plants that we service. And I sat next. I was hungover as hell on the flight home. So I was like, "Well, I'm gonna drink heavily because we don't have to work the next day. We're just gonna be on a plane." That was a horrible idea. And I sat next to a flight attendant. I'm like, "What's it like in the cockpit?" She's like, "Yeah, you just kind of just hang out. I mean, it's kind of scary. You can see like out the window, but you don't really do much. You just kind of sit there, and then the only time they really take the wheel is when they're taking off and when they're landing. That's it."
that's got to be such like a weird thing to be in because eventually your position changes. Like people literally look to you for every single answers you're walking. Like it's got to be like Fauci, for instance. Everyone loved him. The people put signs on their yard saying Fauci is who I pray to at dinner. And then now it's like everyone fucking hates him and
Yeah.
everyone's like, I hope you die in a hole. And I'm like, oh my God, that's got to be like, I always talk about that. The fall from grace. It's
Hmm.
so mentally mind fucking when you're that's a good put that on a shirt, mentally mind
Mentally mind
fucking.
fucking.
um but
Is that the next out of the blank shirt?
no, I got better ideas down the pike. You know what's crazy is I tried to advertise on my Instagram the shirts, like do the like if you hit my profile and you hit view shop, you can click on my shop and there'll be 8 t-shirts I have posted designs up there. But then when you click it, it's like Instagram is not allowed this on there. And I went on there like, what? And they're like, you don't own it. I was like, I fucking own it. And they're like, no, actually, it's owned by this. And it's my fucking actual name, my Facebook, my actual one owns it. And I'm like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? And it's like, oh, yeah, if you want to actually verify that you own it, you're going to have to log in and then also type in your bank information. I'm like, what's my bank shit for? Like, what is the bank shit for? Turns out Instagram wants a piece. Instagram wants a
Okay.
little bit of that cut of that money that you make. And they're like, well, Teespring actually owns it. I'm like, yeah, I post my design to Teespring, and that's where you guys get the shirt from if someone buys it from your thing. They're like, yeah, but you need to message them and get a Facebook pixel so they'll actually put it on your catalog on Facebook. I'm like, but it's sold through Teespring. Yeah, well, since Teespring technically owns it, since your design's up there, but Teespring's like, no, you own it. We just make it. And then we take a little small portion and then whatever goes to you, which I make mine so low that I don't make really anything. I make a buck or two, but then that
Yeah.
just gets funneled into fucking making something else. I don't
Yeah.
use that. I'm not going to survive off my pod. That'd be, maybe I should. Maybe I should. There's a page called Buy Me a Coffee, and a guy, whoever donates, you can choose what you want to donate. $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month. If I got 100 people donating $5 a month, that's fucking bank. Just kidding. I would
So
never
you're
do
gonna
that.
start monetizing the
Fuck no.
podcast.
Look, I'll say it here. You know how easy that would be for me to be able to do that, but I'm going to stay authentic with what I said in the beginning. I'm not taking people and I'm not charging for my content. It will always be free for people. Now, taking money from companies is a different fucking horse. I will be more than
Oh
happy
yeah.
to take from the industry or any type of, if somebody fucking Kellogg's Quiznos wants to sponsor me, hell yeah, I'm taking a check. But if it's people, nope. You are people. You are just like me. We're all working together. But these industry elites, these fucking people up there on the higher pedestals, I'm going to take every fucking like a
So you
pissed
gonna
off
get
ex.
sponsored by Papa John's or what? I mean,
No,
you
he's
mentioned
banned me.
Papa John's enough.
He's banned me way too many times. I apologize. I hope he comes back. It'd be nice to see that turnaround, like, hey, look, I've talked so much shit. I put your head, or I had you holding a head on a pizza. Let me just apologize. They did him so dirty, man.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I don't like is like, if imagine you're famous, you're a celebrity one day, and then someone just decides that you said something they don't like, or you do something that they're like, he's not in my tentacles of business anymore. He's not wrapped around my finger. I don't have my beck and call. Well, he's done. And then they just find a way to make you lose everything you have ever built for. I'm like, that's why Conan probably got out of the game. You know how hard it's got to be doing that show and being Conan when so many fucking people literally just are watching you 24/7. You got to be so wrapped into the fingers of everything. I feel like that's what happened with Jon Stewart. He was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not what I wanted to do. This is making me more miserable. And they're like, well, you leave when we say you leave. And it's like, no, I'm going to leave now. And then they just
Yeah.
fucking make him look like a
It's
crazy
like,
person.
see ya.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be brutal. I mean, I feel like any celebrity or any person that has any form of fame, I mean, it would be nice to have the money that goes with it, but as far as the fame goes, I got to think that's got to be the most brutal thing ever. Like you can't even like take a shit in a public restroom without someone like knocking on it, like, "Hey, I saw you went in there. Can I get an autograph when you're done?" Like, no, let me take a shit. Let me wipe my ass.
Well, it's so weird how you get adjusted to when fame starts coming at you and you've never had fame before. You're like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. Everybody loves me. And then after a while, you're like, this is fucking exhausting. And then after when it goes away and you don't have it anymore, you want it back because you're like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, I wasn't ready. I'm adjusted to this way of everybody taking photos of me while I'm trying to take a shit or get a taco. And it's like, that's what's nuts to me. That's why I talk about the fall of grace. Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor losing fights. It's like, imagine that people
Yeah.
love you or love to hate the shit out of you. And then you drop from that fall from grace of being number one, everybody wanting your face on their shirt. And then now you just become this thing. That's like, that's why I've always just wanted to be like average. I don't want to be like a Mr. Popular. I just want to be someone that like you connect with good people, you have a good time, and you don't fucking have to worry about anything but the own demons in your head.
Well, I mean, as far as Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor go, I can't feel too bad for them because they do. I mean, I think isn't Ronda Rousey on like WWE or WWF or whatever now?
She
And
did a couple spots, I think, but the
oh, I thought she
SNL
was a
made
regular. I didn't know.
the SNL sketch that was sketchy, where she was a teacher that fucked the student who was Pete Davidson. And they're like, what's the evidence you have? And he made a video after he did. He's like, I'm going to get fucked tonight. And he's in a bathroom and they're just smiling and laughing. I'm like, it's funny. But if the roles were reversed and it was a woman on a child girl that got up there and it was a guy teacher, it would be a very huge fucking problem.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not even gonna comment on the on that issue. That's a can of worms right there, Robbie.
It's fucking nuts, man. I just look at it like it seems like everybody's like got their own fucking. I get it. You got your own perspective on things, but like, is anybody else like, I don't know. It just feels like the world's complicated enough and it just keeps getting more complicated. I'm like, it's supposed to get easier. Aren't like we talk about imagine we've neglected this emotion, this sense of things. Maybe with striving so much to have technology do things for us, we've neglected some things. After a while, if you have something like your chair or something can teleport you to places, you're going to lose your ability to know how to drive. You're
Hmm.
eventually going to lose your ability to know how to walk. And it's going to be Wally's probably the exact representation of what's going to eventually happen if beds will start flying for us. People are not really going to want to move unless you're a fitness guy. And even after a while, your kid's probably not going to be a fitness kid. The kid after that's probably not going to be a fitness kid. I mean, you see the boy Hercules. He's 29 years old, and what doctors predicted was going to happen to him is happening, where his testosterone, his body's all fucked up from the use of drugs when he was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember when he was young, I didn't really follow
Yeah.
anything after that.
When he was in his 20s, like my age, he did not look like how he did back in the day. He had a dad bod. He was all like, I'm
Really?
drinking beer because it's very, very hard. As much as fitness is a part of my life, with all the other shit I do, I'm like, oh, I can see it neglects a little bit now compared to when that was the only thing. Now
Yeah.
it's like you're involved in so many things. When you eventually, like yourself, start having a kid, when you start, you get married and things, you still try and craft out time for it, but you notice some things like, relationship weight's a real thing because you don't need to impress people anymore. There were so many hot girls at my gym. To me, obviously, everyone's attractive to whoever they're attracted to. Gotta have to say that. It's true. But when you look at it, like a lot of them got into relationships and then a lot of them don't look like they did before. They stopped going to the gym. They go once a month now. They got other priorities. It's like having a job. When you get into a really stable job or you have a career, you can work out and finally get the body you want. That's why people like in their 30s that have like a doctorate or something like that, then they start going to the gym and getting their body in shape because now they have the time to. But trying to manage that with school when you're doing the process, for me, I fucked up. I didn't continue trying to chase down a career. I just started working out and using that to get my own demons away. So I got into shape, and then now I'm like, oh well, I'm in shape, but without a like career or
Yeah, I
life
did it the wrong
goals.
way.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that's detrimental to working out is getting 5 centimeters of your intestine cut out. That kind of puts a hamper on that as
Yeah, you
well.
can't lift. That's gotta suck.
Dude, it's been horrible. I've been doing like 5 pound weights because my limit's 10 pounds that I can lift at the moment. They kind of upped it a little bit because I was in better shape going into it. So they're like, well, do what you're comfortable with. But I just got to be careful because I don't want to get a hernia or anything like that.
I'm
So I've been,
so happy you brought that up because I want to know more about this story. Because I just remember you went to the hospital. I didn't even know you were in there. I just saw a picture. I found out through Facebook. That's what's shitty, is I found out through Facebook.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't even look at my phone. I was so just nauseated anytime I'd look at my phone or try to read anything. But what happened was I've had stomach issues for probably a good, I would say like 2 years or so. I mean, you and I have discussed this many times.
Speaking to the choir.
Yeah, yeah. And it got really bad. I want to say I don't remember the exact dates, but it was on a Friday. I had to leave work early. I took a half day because I after lunch I ended up going to the bathroom and just throwing up. And I was like, okay, I gotta go. And then I was sick all Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I was kind of sick, but I was, able to, move around and do stuff. And then Monday I went to work, and then after work I was in the middle of a workout, and I had to quit because my stomach was just feeling horrible.
I have
And
days
then
like that too.
yeah, and then my wife made me something to eat. I think she made me like eggs and like a breakfast type of sandwich thing. And I just looked at it and I was like, I can't. And then I kind of doubled over and was just like curled up in the fetal position on our couch. And she's like, you need to go to the ER. And I'm like, let me see how this plays out. Because, I don't know. Not every guy's like that, but it
I am
takes some
too.
negotiation to get me to go to the ER. So I actually went up. I was like, maybe if I take a bath or something, maybe it'll help out. So I went in, I went into the bathtub and I looked down in my stomach. It was like protruding out a little bit.
Like a
And I
bulge.
was like, what's that?
Like a bulge.
Yeah, essentially. And I was like, yeah, I probably should go to the hospital.
Wait, so did you give
So
yourself a hernia?
no, no, no. There was a section, they did a CT scan and they found a blockage in my intestine, in my small intestine, which is like the upper GI. But where it was in a spot that's kind of like the lower end of the upper GI. So they couldn't do an endoscopy and they couldn't do a colonoscopy to find it. So they did a CT scan and they're like, yeah, that section of your intestines completely fucked. So we're going to cut it out.
Why,
And
why was it fucked though? Is it a blockage that ripped it up or what was it?
it was they said that section of my intestine was subject to Crohn's disease. So it flared up enough that it created a blockage. And when they cut it out, I mean, there was all kinds of things on the table. They said at one point, we don't want to get you alarmed. It doesn't look like it, but it could be anything. It could even be cancer, stomach cancer,
That's
or
what they gave
whatever.
me, dude. And when they give you that type of diagnosis, you're fucked for ever long as it takes till they take that off the table.
Yeah. Well, I told them because the surgical team came in and told me that. They said it doesn't look like it. So I was like, well, that's good. At least it doesn't look like it. I was like, whatever you do, because my wife wasn't there at the time. I'm like, if my wife is severely pregnant, if she comes in here, do not bring up cancer. She has enough stress and everything. Just don't even say it unless it becomes a real thing.
I'm sorry. When you said severely pregnant, I was like, opposed to what? And I get it because of how close it is, but I'm like, yeah, pregnant's pregnant. Even if the baby's in like barely grown yet, you still don't want to stress them
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, she's severely pregnant. So I was like, don't say anything unless it's for sure, cancerous. If it's not, and you guys don't know, don't even bring that up. And then yeah, I was in there for 6 days. It sucked. I couldn't eat anything from when I attempted to eat after work, after I worked out. That was on a Monday night. And I don't think I was able to eat anything. I think they introduced my surgery was on a Wednesday, or no, maybe it was a Wednesday. And then they introduced Jello. I think it was like Thursday night, which that was the best thing ever. I mean, it was glorious just being able to eat a little freaking cup of Jello because I couldn't even drink water until after the surgery. So for like 2 days, I couldn't even drink water. And then that hospital food, I'm sure it was fucking terrible, but when I finally did get to actually eat food, it was glorious.
When my dad got his gallbladder taken out, you have to fast for that type of surgery. Anything really inside you have to fast for. So he's like fasting for like 2 days. So
Yeah,
all he was eating was ice chips, which is just ice in a cup, but like chopped up and slushed up or crushed up real nice, whatever. So you can be able to eat it like a chip. It's supposed to
yeah.
give the kind of like suppress the urge to eat for like a little bit.
Hmm.
And after his surgery, he was able to eat like a couple hours after it was over with because it's such a minor surgery of like, I know it sounds minor in surgery, but a gallbladder is like you don't really need it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so the doctor comes in, checks his chart, and my dad just goes, "When can I eat? Like I'm hungry, man." And my dad loves food, so it's like, "Yeah, when can I eat?" And doctor goes, "You haven't eaten already?" And he goes, "No." And he goes, "Oh man, they messed up your chart. You could have had food a couple hours ago." He goes, "Can someone get me food?" He goes, "Everyone's out. Like there's the lunch isn't open. Nobody's on. This is middle of the night when this happened." So he was like, "What do you mean I can't have food?" And the doctor goes, "I have a sandwich." And they shared a sandwich that night.
That's
And I'm
awesome.
like, that's fucking great, dude. Like that's the type of doctor you want, is one that will, he said it was a ham and mayonnaise sandwich. He goes, "I don't care about that type of food," but he goes, "I was so fucking hungry. It was the best thing I've ever had in my life." And I was like,
Yep.
that's nuts.
Yeah, yeah. If you can't eat for days on end, I mean, once you get food, it doesn't matter if it's a turd sandwich. It's the most glorious thing ever.
Do you think maybe that's a small fix you could do? Imagine if you made it so there was less food than you had to consume in a day for most of your town or most of the world. Do you think then people would be like, huh, maybe I should appreciate this a little bit more?
That's possible. I mean, you're eating what, a can of tuna a day?
Yeah, but I purposely knocked myself down to that. And now it's not even a can. It's actually probably mostly vegetables now too, because I do like, actually by vegetables I mean rice and beans, but I do like the size of like the bottom or the top of a Coke can, like a circle like that,
Mhm.
quarter scoop of tuna, a little bit of rice and beans in a small, very small bowl, and I just eat that. And I went to go see Fast and Furious, and I didn't eat until I ate at 6 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get home to eat again until like 4. Like, and all I had was like a small little thing of tuna, but I realized like I was hungry in the movies, and then I was watching the movie and it just went away. I was like, if you're doing shit and you're occupied, you don't focus on it, especially
Yeah.
if you're sitting down, you're not expending a whole lot of energy too. Cause there's sometimes I'm like, I'm so full and I'll go to like the store and I'll come back and it's like an hour later. I'm like, I'm fucking starving because I only had a
Mhm.
little bit of food. So that was only a little bit of fuel to be able to do stuff. But then I washed my car, could gas in my car, do all that stuff. My body's like, you've expended all the nutrients in your stomach now.
Yeah, yeah. See, I'm the opposite. I'm a large guy. I need to, I need to eat. It doesn't matter. I'm thinking about it. When I wasn't able to eat for those amount of days, I'd see like all I could do was watch TV. So I couldn't get on my phone because it made me nauseous looking at the little screen or whatever. I couldn't read books because that made me nauseous. So all I was able to do was watch the TV in the hospital. And every time I saw a pizza commercial, I was like, motherfuckers, I just want it so bad.
Did you get your
And
anger like I did with Papa John?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I hate Little Caesars. I hate it. I think it's the worst pizza ever. But I was like, damn, that Little Caesars on that commercial looks fucking amazing.
That's my grandpa's favorite. I'm like, why do you like Little Caesars? He's like, it's hot and ready. What else do you want? And I was like, okay,
It
simple,
also
simple shit.
tastes like cardboard, the
Yeah, that's what I
crust.
said. It tastes like cardboard because it all tastes the same. That's like with him and his coffee. Don't you want like a caramel coffee? He goes, what? Coffee only comes in if you add sugar or not. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
simple
That's
shit.
the
Like I
old
said.
school mentality.
Yeah. So maybe if you used less, if you didn't have as much, you would be not used to having so much. So you would be able to survive off very little.
Yeah, yeah.
But people like the options now. You've opened up the greed door for the demons to come in.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm glad you're all
And
right, dude. That was a scary moment too.
yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. I hope they figure out what's going on with your gut too. Hopefully it's not something they have to cut out or
They
anything.
said it's stress, and I'm like, hey, I'm not that stressed. They're like, a lot. You're very stressed. I can tell your hair's going white. I'm like, I know.
Dude, I feel your pain, but I'm also 35. I mean,
I'm 23.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You should not be going gray yet.
I could rock it though. My grandma went gray at 25. So I'm like, hey, maybe I mean, they say like genetics wise, I'm more like her than I am with anybody else in my family. Everybody else is kind of off other people. I'm like exactly like her. So I'm like, okay, maybe the gray is a possibility. I'd rock it. Get me a nice like gray stripe down the side, like Invincible, the dad on there.
Hell yeah. I
Think
mean, hey,
Mark,
going
think.
gray is better than going bald, right?
Yeah, that's scary. My buddy's 26, and when he was in high school, everything all back here, everything down the middle went gray, like not gray, went just gone. So he has a little
Yeah.
bit of hair on his forehead and then a little bit off to the side. And I'm like, oh my God, like that and a receding hairline. That's just you go bald at that point.
Yeah. I mean, if I started going bald and it was receding bad enough, I would just pick my head.
There's that lawmaker who
Rock
was
my eyebrows.
there was that lawmaker that was on the TV and he was talking. You could see his scalp because his hair was so thin and it was like there was only a couple on the front. Like he still had like a full luscious Elvis hair, but it was all so thin you could see the scalp. And I was like, dude, just shave it off. Just fucking. But I think it's like that fear. If you shave it off, it's never coming back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you might as well just like grow it long and hope for the best. I
I
actually had
al-
a roommate in college. He went bald at age 17. Like that had to be brutal.
I
And I mean
also
like completely bald. Like
I also sent a what do you call it? Not sent. I saw a video on Facebook of a guy who had a sunroof and he was bald, and the girl was like, "Dad, you're gonna go bald, or not? You're gonna go bald. You're gonna get sunburn on your bald spot." He goes, "Shut up, I'm driving." And then next, thing you know, it sees him getting out of the car, and they're TikToking the video, and it's him, and his whole top of his head where the sunroof is just fucking bursting red, and everyone's laughing. And he's like, "What's wrong?" He looks in the like the window, and then it ends. I was like, "Damn, I want to see his reaction." Where he's like, "Holy shit, that's gotta
yeah.
hurt."
That used to happen to my stepdad all the time. He's bald and yeah, we'd go on vacation and stuff. If he didn't put sunscreen up there, it's gonna be red.
You got to reapply. We got to fucking reapply. Are you kidding me? I didn't even like it the first time we put it on.
Yeah, exactly.
But Mike, you gave me enough of your time, man. Where can people find you at, man?
My paranormal team's Bump in the Night Society. We actually just came out with a new. I It's kind of a documentary. I've been calling it a movie just because of the length, but we came out with a new movie. It's Possessed and Oppressed in a town called Bel Air. It's about our investigation at the Bel Air house in Ohio, which is very dark.
So many people are going to click on that thinking it's something else, and then you're like, "Oh my god, wait, it's a ghost thing." I thought it meant it was like a suppression thing.
Yeah. I kind of played on the words too to make it kind of like the Fresh Prince of Bel
Mm.
Air. But yeah, Bump in the Night Society. We're on everything: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those things. So yeah, I mean that's the main source there.
I'll make sure I link everything in the description. Is there anything you want to say to the people that will be listening to this episode, probably on a day that they're enjoying a long drive to work?
I'm gonna say live long and prosper.
He did the Spock thing for people listening, and I think I lost a little bit of respect for him, but it's okay. We love him anyway.
Hey.